My name is Elise. Recently, I celebrate my 35th birthday. A few days ago, my husband Edwin and I celebrated our third wedding anniversary. Edwin works for a very well-known company and he takes care of me every day. We have a fulfilling married life with no complaints. On the other hand, although I graduated from college, I was originally supposed to take over my father's company. However, I couldn't give up on my childhood dream of becoming a nursery school teacher. Using the money I had saved through investment during my college years, I immediately enrolled in a vocational college for early childhood education after graduating. I have no regrets about this decision even now, but of course my father strongly opposed when I said I wanted to be a nursery school teacher. Taking care of children is a job anyone can do. You are the only daughter who can inherit my company. I was constantly told such things, and there was a time when I wondered if I would end up like Dad in the future. However, this is my one and only life. Even when I was studying business administration in college, I occasionally read books about child care to study. So, my determination at the time was firm, and no matter how much my father opposed, I had no intention of giving up. If you won't listen to me, then leave, never come back. With those words from my father, I left home. While attending vocational college, I continued to work part-time and somehow managed to graduate, fulfilling my long-cherished dream of working in a nursery. One day, on the 5th year of being a nursery school teacher, I was invited to a home party by a fellow teacher who works at the same nursery. There, I met Edwin, who gave me a kind impression. We were attracted to each other and soon started dating. After 2 years of being together, we got married, and here we are now. My relationship with my parents was almost like being estranged, so I hadn't really informed them properly, but I was happy. I was delighted to have met Edwin, who cherished me so much, and every day felt fulfilling. However, a certain incident soon pushed me to the depths of despair. Let's go back a year and a half. Edwin proposed to me, and I immediately accepted. Knowing the circumstances of my family, Edwin told me that we didn't need to have a formal meeting between our families. Instead, I would visit Edwin's parents and introduce myself. The first impression of Edwin's parents was that they seemed very kind. When I mentioned that I had very little contact with my own family, my mother-in-law said, "That's not uncommon these days. Just think of us as your real parents." Her warm words touched me. I thought that with these people, I could become part of a family. So I married Edwin. However, reality was not as sweet as I had hoped. In the beginning of our marriage, I frequently visited Edwin's parents. On long weekends, Thanksgiving, Christmas holidays, and so on. Alice, you're a poor child who doesn't know the love of parents, right? Being poor means you've never even had a proper meal from your mother, right? Don't hesitate. Feel free to eat. Maybe my in-laws didn't have ill intentions, but being treated as poor just because I'm disconnected from my parents and being told that I've never felt love, it was painful. Alice, we took you in as our daughter-in-law. Don't force poverty on Edwin just because you were used to being poor and still working as a low-paying nursery teacher. Every time my mother-in-law said that, tears welled up. It's true that being a nursery teacher doesn't come with a high salary, but I loved working with young children. There's no other job where I can witness the growth of children up close. Being able to watch over them is such a precious job. As someone who became a nursery teacher with such thoughts, my mother-in-law's words hit me hard. Edwin would get angry and defend me every time my in-laws belittled me, but it must be the truth. That's why my father-in-law and mother-in-law said without any remorse. Returning to Edwin's parents' house became a bit burdensome, and the frequency of my visits decreased rapidly. But then, my mother-in-law started sending me texts, one after another. When will I see my grandchild's face? You're already at an age where you should quit your job and focus on getting pregnant. Women who can earn well should obviously stay at home, right? I endured days of such unpleasant remarks. To top it up, my father-in-law even called me when he knew Edwin was at work. Stop burdening our son. If you are living in poverty, handle it on your own. He too joined my mother-in-law in hurling verbal abuse at me, but I couldn't tell my husband about any of this. I kept it all inside and pretended as if nothing was wrong whenever I was with him. However, there came a breaking point for me, an event that pushed me to my limit. We are having a gathering with relatives soon, so come. With the message from my mother-in-law, I returned to my in-law's house with Edwin after a long time. Upon arrival, Edwin's parents and siblings were all gathered, and I greeted them all. In the midst of it, my mother-in-law spoke up. Everyone, this is Edwin's wife Alice. She grew up poor and is no longer in contact with her parents. So please be kind to her, okay? In the moment, I felt so embarrassed that tears welled up. Sure, I was also at fault for not explaining my parents' situation in detail. But why did it have to be said like this? Shame and frustration overwhelmed me. I couldn't hold back my tears and kept my head down. Enough already! Those words were shouted by Edwin. Everyone looked at us in surprise as Edwin's usually gentle voice turned into a shout. Both Mom and Dad, cut it out already. What the hell do you know about Alice? You don't even know what feelings she had when she left her family home, yet you keep saying whatever you want. Unable to contain my emotion, I couldn't help but shed tears at Edwin's genuine anger for my shake. However, disregarding both my and Edwin's feelings, my father-in-law spoke. Edwin, you were being deceived, you know? You were just being used by that poor woman for money. Following my father-in-law's word, my mother-in-law chimed in. That's right, Edwin. Don't be fooled, okay? You were just being taken advantage of. There's no love from Alice, I'm sure of it. Hearing such a heartless word, I was left speechless. All the frustration and sadness I felt just a moment ago vanished completely. What were these people saying? That was the only question that crossed my mind. Let's go. With those words, Edwin grabbed my hand in a daze. The angry voices of my in-laws continued to echo from behind, but Edwin ignored it all, put me in the car, and drove us home. After arriving home, Edwin spoke. I'm sorry, Alice. It's because of my parents. It's okay. Thank you for always standing up for me. As we exchanged those words, the tension in the air slightly eased, but I noticed that I had a missed call from my mother when I checked my phone. Seeing the call history from my mother, whom I hadn't contacted in a while, I had a bad feeling and immediately called back her. Then my mother answered right away. "It's been a while, Mom," I said, but there was no response from my mother, although the call was definitely connected. "Mom, can you hear me?" "Hey, did something happen out of the blue?" I asked. Then my mother murmured softly, "Your father had an accident." "Huh?" I was drawn up by the sudden news. "He was taken to the hospital by an ambulance and is currently undergoing emergency surgery. The doctors say it's a complicated procedure," my mother told me while crying. However, I was also in a state of shock and couldn't process the information. Seeing me devastate, Edwin took my phone and answered the call on my behalf. "Nice to meet you, mother-in-law." "Huh? Who is this?" My mother's surprised voice faintly reached me through Edwin's sudden words. "I'm sorry for calling at a time like this. This is Edwin, Ellie's husband. I apologize for not properly introducing myself before." Being next to him, I could sense my mother's confusion over the phone. Edwin continued and spoke to my mother. "I'm sorry for surprising you, but please tell me about the current situation." Thanks to Edwin's composed response, I understood the current situation of my father, including which hospital he was in, and I followed Edwin to the hospital where my father was taken. Upon arriving at the hospital, my mother was there, looking dejected. When she noticed me, "Alice, it's been a while. Thank you for coming." Saying that, my mother shed tears. Seeing her face, tears naturally welled up in my eyes as well. I introduced Edwin to my mother, and while listening to the detail of the accident, the attending physician arrived. "Your husband's surgery was successful. He will regain consciousness with time." "Doctor, thank you so much. Thank you." My mother and I broke down in tears on the spot. Observing us, Edwin also had a look of relief on his face. The next day, my father regained consciousness, and I apologized for the past. "Dad, I'm sorry for what happened. I acted thoughtlessly. Honestly, I didn't expect to be forgiven." However, my father's response was different from what I imagined. "No, I'm the one who should apologize." "Huh?" "I thought it'd be best for you to take over my company. I couldn't respect your own aspirations, and I was a lousy father." Saying that, my father smiled through his tears. Naturally, tears streamed down my face as well. "Thank you, Dad." I introduced Edwin to my father, and he was delighted. Since we couldn't make a formal introduction before, it was decided that we'd visit Edwin's parents' house once my father was discharged from the hospital to properly greet them. After a few weeks, my father was safely discharged from the hospital. We were heading to Edwin's parents' house with my father driving. We had informed Edwin's parents about our visit, but "We don't need greetings from a poor family like yours," she had texted me that the day before. However, my father was determined, and we headed to Edwin's parents' house in his prideful car. When we arrived at Edwin's parents' house and rang the doorbell, my mother-in-law, who seemed in a sour mood, came out. Then she widened her eyes upon seeing my father's car. "Is that by any chance?" "Yes, it's my father's car," As I said that, my mother-in-law hurried went to call my father-in-law. "Honey, something's up. Come quickly." I could hear my mother-in-law shouting from inside the house. "What's going on? It's a noise." Reluctantly, my father-in-law came out, and he too widened his eyes upon seeing my father's prideful car. "What's that? Could it be a Porsche?" "Dad, you know it well. It's a Porsche Cayenne," my father answered with a smile. "Excuse me, but are these Alice's parents? What do they do for a living?" With a wry smile, my mother-in-law asked my father. "I'm the CEO of the ABC Group," my father answered. "The ABC Group, you say? That's a highly famous company now, isn't it?" "Yes, my father is the head of a company that is so well known that there is no one who hadn't heard of it. That's why we had cut ties, and I hadn't told my in-laws in detail about it." Then, as if their previous attitude had been a lie, my in-laws started praising me. No wonder I thought Alice was a wonderful young lady. Huh? My inner voice slipped out unintentionally. No wonder I thought you were well brought up. It's obviously just by looking at your face. Following my mother-in-law, even my father-in-law started saying convenient things. But to maintain a good relationship, I couldn't stay silent. Thinking the way, I desperately tried to suppress my emotions when Edwin, who was by my side, spoke up. "Stop it, you damn parents of mine." My usually gentle Edwin's profanity stunned my in-laws. "What's gotten into you, Edwin? You have a good wife and you're happy, aren't you?" Desperately squeezing out the word, my mother-in-law said. "Who are you to say that? You've been mocking Alice all along." Edwin expressed his anger, his tone changing. Then, "What does that mean?" my father reacted. "Well, you see, it's not like that. It's a misunderstanding." "That's right, it's nothing like me making fun," my in-laws hurriedly trying to cover up. "You've judged Alice as poor without any basis, making her a laughingstock in front of relatives, haven't you? And not only that, you've been constantly making nasty remarks to Alice herself. Even though I warned you, you never listened. And now that you know Alice's parents are amazing people, you're changing your attitude. It's disgusting." Saying that, Edwin shouted at his parents with an intensity I had never seen before. Upon hearing that, my father spoke up as well. "Edwin's parents, I appreciate you upsetting Alice as your daughter-in-law, but if you are going to treat my precious daughter that way, I will take appropriate action." My father had a smile on his face, but his eyes showed no amusement. Seeing my father like that, my in-laws' expressions twisted further. In the midst of it all, it was Edwin who delivered the final blow. "I want nothing to do with despicable people like you as my family. After today, I'm cutting ties." "Huh?" Taken aback by Edwin's sudden declaration of estrangement, my in-laws panicked. "Wait a minute, what are you saying?" "That's right, Edwin. Let's get along from now on, including Alice's family. Don't say convenient things. I will never consider you both as my parents again." Saying that, Edwin left the scene. "Excuse us." My father followed Edwin's lead, as I was about to leave as well. "Wait, Alice!" my mother-in-law shouted. "I apologize for everything that happened until now, so please don't cut ties." "That's right, Alice. We've been like parents to you, haven't we? Parents? Give me a break. After trampling on people's feelings and ridiculing them countless times, I suppressed the rising anger and turned around to speak. Thank you for everything. Goodbye. Saying that, I headed toward the car where my father and Edwin were waiting. My in-laws stood there in stunned silence. And thus I was simultaneously liberated from the pain of my in-laws and severed ties with my parents. Since then, I don't live with my parents, but we regularly meet up for meals. My father has taken a liking to Edwin and seems to be planning to pass on his company to him in the future. In response to my father's expectations, Edwin is working hard every day. I have nothing but gratitude for Edwin, who not only freed me from the shackle of my in-laws, but also gets along well with my own parents. As for me, I am still working as a nursery teacher. My father now approves of my choice and seems to be supporting me. Surrounded by the people I love and cherish, my life is truly blissful.